moving on. We find individual. Okay, let's move on. Okay. Your account of Jesus in the temple is also factually incorrect. Jesus never said that he was the Messiah there. He only directly reveals himself directly to very specific people who exhibit a quench for and openness to the truth. This is important because it's an important religious concept to examine who Christ tells directly that he is the Messiah. Okay, so he did tell some people that he was the Messiah, right? Otherwise, how would you know? It's like, no, you just have to figure it out based on how good I am and all the miracles that I do. Please. Because blah, blah, blah. Okay. For example, one person he reveals himself to is a woman estranged from the Jewish faith because she had so many husbands, yet she was filled with a strong love for God and open mind and ear for Christ. I think she's talking about Mary Magdalene or whatever the fuck her name was. And so many husbands? What's wrong with having so many husbands? You know, there are lots of people that have so many husbands. Do you mean like she had sex with a lot of guys? I mean, is that what you really mean? I always thought Mary Magdalene was just, you know, like a promiscuous woman. You know, just had lots of sex. And by the way, I mean, well, whatever. I mean, what do I want to say about that? Okay, this is probably Mary Magdalene or whatever. This teaches us not only was Christ open to all people, including sluts, I guess. Was he open-minded to rapists too? Was he open-minded to murderers? I mean, being open-minded to sluts. I mean, I can be open-minded to sluts, but I'm not going to be open-minded to more scumbaggy people. Anyway, but our sins and shortcomings can never entirely estrange us from our faith. Yeah, I guess that means you can be hypocrites, right? And still be good people and believe in God and stuff like that. You know, that's the thing about Christianity, all religion. You know, they espouse one thing on Sunday. It's like what's that guy? It's what Malcolm X said. They preach good values on Sunday, but they practice it never. That's the problem with your religion. It's filled with hypocrites and scumbags. They never practice what they preach. Atheists are better people, in my opinion. I think they're much. Anyway. Blah, blah, blah. Where am I? Okay, also Christ never says, I'm the Messiah. Of course, you know, wouldn't that be fucked up if you just said, I'm the Messiah? Hey, I'm the Messiah. Believe in me. Worship my feet. Of course, I don't think he would be even that dumb. Even he's not that dumb to say that. It's never so blatant. Now, besides these unique individuals, Jesus only said something like, if asked, he was the Messiah or the One or God. But again, oftentimes it was vague responses such as, I am He. I am He. Why doesn't he just say, yeah? Yeah. Are you the God? Yeah. Fuck you. But I am He is pretty blatant anyway. Yeah, okay, I am He. It's just bad English, actually. Yeah, I am He. Are you Enigma Hood? I am He. Yes, I am, fucker. Get out of my face. In any case, he did not go into the temple and wreck things and yell that he was the Messiah. That's not how he revealed himself. Also, he did not randomly go into temples and overturn tables. What you're referring to is Christ's cleansing of the temple. Right before Passover, Christ was in Capernaum. Am I pronouncing that? Am I pronouncing this right? Capernaum? Whatever. With his mother, brothers... He had brothers? And disciples. Yeah, I'm Jesus' brother. I get fucked over all the time. He got all the credit. You know, if he had brothers? So that means his mother was not a virgin then. Unless they're all born from holy means or whatever the fuck it is. Actually, now that I think about it, Jesus' mom supposedly got married afterwards, didn't she? Maybe she fucked her new husband and had offspring. I guess. Whatever. And so they went into the Capernaum, wherever the fuck that is, and he saw that men were selling sheep, cattle, and exchanging money in the temple courts. These were sacrilegious actions in the Jewish faith, so according to scripture, Christ destroyed the temple and rebuilt it in 3 days to purify it, because in the Jewish faith, these actions occurring in the temple would corrupt the space. Alright, I don't give a damn if what they were doing was wrong. You don't fucking destroy a building and then rebuild it. Okay, if I have a problem with what's going on at, like, you know, a bank, if I don't like how they're, like, dealing with my money, I'm not gonna destroy the fucking thing. I'm gonna be arrested. Okay, you don't just destroy shit just because you don't like what they're doing there. There's other ways of getting your message across. So I would say if he actually did destroy the temple, he deserved to be punished for that. You don't destroy shit just because they're doing something wrong. You have to do it in a legal way, even if the officials are corrupt. All right. And you especially don't use violence if you can't defend yourself, which obviously he could not. You know, if it's one thing to use violence and you can get away with it, because then you have power. But Jesus, obviously, he didn't have power because he ended up being killed. Or at least he didn't have enough. Also, you say the Jews got pissed off at him for fucking around in their affairs and had him killed. On a minor point, let's be clear, Jesus was Jewish. I know that. So these were his affairs too. Not all Jews agreed with him, obviously, but he wasn't alien to the religion. In fact, he was often called rabbi in the Bible. Now, you're really simplifying the attitude of Jews towards Jesus here. There's no singular event that prompted the Sanhedrin, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, Jewish judicial body, to ask Pontius Pilate, whatever, to condemn Jesus to death. It was a culmination of acts that they did not agree with ranging from Jesus' tendency to perform miracles on the Sabbath. What kind of miracles? You know, like, why do you just believe that he was able to perform miracles? Maybe he was just, like, good at performing magic tricks. You know, there's this guy in India called Sati Sai Baba who is able to, like, make gold chains appear and all kinds of... he's able to make sand appear from his hands, and he's able to make water appear. These are all just magic tricks. Any professional magician can do them. Maybe he was able to do that. You know, Jim Jones... had a woman, you know, Jim Jones, the cult leader of the People's Temple, he had a woman who was in a wheelchair. He pretended to perform a miracle on her, and then she got up from the wheelchair and then started running around, and all of his constituency believed that he performed a miracle, when in fact she could walk all the time. It was a completely staged thing. Don't you think it's entirely possible, even if he supposedly performed miracles, they were either magic tricks or something staged? There's no evidence that any of these supposed miracles were legitimate at all. Okay, preaching and dining with sinners and outcasts. What's wrong with that? Wasn't he a carpenter? Who cares if he was dining with, you know, losers? He was a loser himself. And many other things. Now, you're vague when you say had him killed in reference to the Jews, but if you mean specifically that they had him condemned to death, that's not true. I never said that. I always meant that, I always knew, and I hope I got it across, that they had the Roman officials kill him. I mean, I know that the Jews didn't literally kill him themselves. They didn't have the authority to do so. I understand that. They had the Roman officials do that for them. But they did ask them to do it. They had no political authority to do this, which is why the Sanhedrin appealed to the Pontius Pilate and had him executed. And in the Nicene Creed, which is the profession of belief for Catholics, it says crucified under Pontius Pilate, not the Jews. This is important because saying that the Jews killed Christ, executed Christ, etc., is the reason why so many Jews have been killed and persecuted for thousands of years. And the fact of the matter is that it's false. The Jews did not execute Christ. Pontius Pilate was the one who did it, because he had the actual authority, and I think it's important to make that distinction between the Sanhedrin and the Jews. The Jews did not unanimously agree to have Christ executed. Many passionately protested his crucifixion. One Jewish man, Simon of Cyrene, actually helped Jesus carry his cross, which is part of the Stations of the Cross, and a Jewish woman, Veronica, wiped his face another station. I actually played Veronica in a play in the 8th grade or some shit like that. Okay. Also keep in mind that Jesus, Mary, Joseph, Christ's disciples were all Jews, so to say the Jews had him executed so generally like that is not true. Pontius had him executed at the demand of the Sanhedrin. You know, I wish you would stop saying that guy's name over and over again. I don't know how to pronounce it. You got to pronounce it for me first, so I know how to pronounce it. Sanhedrin. And that's how I'm going to pronounce it. Sanhedrin. But Christ certainly did not condemn himself, and neither did his Jewish mother and followers. This may seem like a little point, but if you put these on YouTube, that sort of language feeds anti-Semitism, which is pretty much rampant on YouTube, and this is dangerous, and also a completely non-religious way. There are many people condone the Holocaust because they believe the Jews executed Christ. So using this language because you don't know the specifics behind Christ's background and condemnation is actually dangerous because it feeds into this idea. I know that this wasn't your intent and I'm not accusing you of that, but this is why I think you need to be informed about what you criticize because your videos can have unwanted and unaccounted for effects. I never, yeah, like you said, I never intended to spread anti-Semitism or anything like that. I just said the Jews had him killed, and that is a true statement. Okay? Now, it might be leaving out a lot of details, and I was aware, I was completely aware of all the well, not to the same degree as you do, but I was aware that they did not literally kill him themselves. Okay? And I didn't want to, spread anti-Semitism or hatred against Jews for that. I was just stating what happened. That's it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with me stating what you also acknowledge happened. Now, that's what I gotta say. Now, okay, I could go into this whole thing and explain every time I'm talking about those things, but it's very time consuming to do so. Anyway, moving on. Jesus' existence isn't as debatable as you say. There are historical records of his existence. There are census documents which prove his existence as a historical figure. After all, that's why he was born in Bethlehem rather than his hometown of Nazareth. Mary and Joseph had to return to Joseph's hometown of Bethlehem for a census. Records of his bar mitzvah and obviously documents of his trial before Pontius. A number of ancient historians also mention Jesus and the stir he made in his community. He does exist. Can a regular person get access to these documents? No, because they are thousands of years old and worth a shit ton of money, and probably in some climate-controlled vault in the Vatican to keep from disintegrating, but very few historians refute his historical existence. Alright, from what I heard, and this is just what I heard, I'm not an expert scholar or historian or anything like that, but from what I heard, all the accounts of Jesus were made after he died, and they were made by Christians, or people who converted to Christianity. I'm gonna say that they were probably biased, and their description of him as being such a good guy might be wrong. They might be fabricated. It's possible. That's what I heard. That all the documents concerning his existence were made after he had already died. Now, could he exist? Could he exist as simply a historical figure? Yeah, and for the most part, I accept that. I don't accept the fact that he is depicted as such a good guy. I really have no reason to believe whether he was a good guy or a bad guy or anywhere in between. I don't know anything about him. And I think all the historical descriptions of him are probably biased in favor for him because they were written by Christians. Take that as you will. Your speculations on Jesus as a murderer are really unfounded. If Jesus did have people killed, we would know. The Sanhedrin would undoubtedly have used this against him because it would have made a much stronger argument before Pontius. He would have been executed immediately for murder. However, Pontius was hesitant to execute Jesus and wasn't sure he even committed a crime. You talk as if it's unknown why he was condemned to death, but it is known. It's recorded. He was condemned for claiming he was the king of Jews. So, no, there is no way he killed people. Claiming he was the king of Jews. Okay, so you admit that he did claim he was... Oh, no, there's a difference there. He was condemned for claiming he was the king of Jews. That doesn't necessarily mean that he claimed he was the king of Jews. Let's say allegedly he claimed he was the king of Jews. Alright, fine. So there was no way he killed people. And it's not really plausible to say maybe no one knew. You wouldn't be able to hide mass murders in Roman Judea. The communities were too small. People all knew each other and wouldn't know if people disappeared and were murdered. We're not talking about a huge modern cities where strings of murders can go unnoticed for a long time. We're talking about small Hebrew villages where everyone knew each other and their families. Okay. Yeah, maybe. I mean, what you're saying does kind of make sense. I do admit that back then they, would probably kill people all the time for any kind of